Greetings, and welcome to the first episode of Morrowind Modding Tutorials. This video will cover all the basic information you need to know about how to install mods for Morrowind. And in particular, this video is geared towards people who have never installed mods before and don't really know where to start, but it's also geared towards people who have installed mods for perhaps other games like Skyrim, but have difficulty with Morrowind, because Morrowind is vastly different than Skyrim or Oblivion when it comes to installing mods. A lot of that has to do just with the fact that it is a 13-year-old game, and practices were a lot different in 2002 than they are today. And there's a wide variety of mods out there, and a lot of them aren't installed the exact same way. Some of them require some special attention, and we'll be covering how to install those mods, and what to look out for when installing mods later on in this video, and we'll also be covering a number of utilities that can really help you cut down on frustration when installing mods, and also improve your gameplay experience, and a lot of other things. And we'll also be covering where to download Morrowind mods from, because there's a lot of confusion here about where to get Morrowind mods. I mean, if I were to ask you where you would download Morrowind mods, you'd probably say Nexus Mods, and you wouldn't be wrong. The Nexus Mods website has a lot of Morrowind mods on it, but in comparison to the total number of Morrowind mods produced by the Morrowind modding community, it actually only represents a tiny fraction of those mods. It's the second largest database, not even the first largest database, for Morrowind mods. So we're going to cover a number of the community websites and mod databases that you can check out and download Morrowind mods from. And by now you've probably noticed that there's a main menu here, and these options are annotated for navigational convenience. You can just jump to a particular part of the video if you so desire. Like if you already know how to install Morrowind mods, but you need help with repairing your save game, you can just go ahead and jump to that part without having to watch the rest of the video. You'll also notice that there's a menu in the YouTube video description with timestamps to particular parts of this video, and you can use that for navigation as well. And in future episodes of Morrowind Modding Tutorials, we'll really be covering some of the more advanced features of the utilities here, because in this first video we're just focusing on the basic stuff you need to know about how to install mods for Morrowind. In future episodes we'll also be covering how to install Morrowind total conversion mods, because those can be a little difficult to install sometimes. But with all that said, why don't we just go straight into the video, starting with where to download Morrowind mods from. Now, the most obvious one is Morrowind Nexus at Nexus Mods, and this is really the best place to go to find newer mods for Morrowind. Pretty much all the major new mods that have been released between 2012 and 2015 present day can be found here at Morrowind Nexus. And it is the second largest database for Morrowind mods, with a total of around 3,400 mods or so. By far and away, though, the largest database for Morrowind mods is actually Morrowind's Modding History, and what's crazy is you've probably never heard of it. Very few people outside of the Morrowind modding community have, but with over 16,000 Morrowind mods, it by far outnumbers the mods at Morrowind Nexus. And the reason for that is because Morrowind Modding History was started as an effort to preserve Morrowind mods from older Morrowind modding sites, like Gamers Rome and Planet Elder Scrolls, which went defunct years ago. And as such, a lot of the classic older mods for Morrowind can only be found at Morrowind Modding History. And not only that, Morrowind Modding History also has this cool feature that allows you to create your own mods right in the web browser, which is definitely something very unique to this site. Now, another one of the major Morrowind modding databases is Greathouse Fligety, and here you'll find a variety of older and newer Morrowind mods in a number of categories. There's about 900 mods in total hosted on Greathouse Fligety, making it the third largest modding database for Morrowind. And you'll find a lot of mods that are unique to Greathouse Fligety and can't really be found anywhere else, especially a lot of Fligety's mods, as you might imagine. And a fourth website you can go to for Morrowind mods is Wolflore, and this is really a place where you'll find a lot more of the adult-themed mods for Morrowind. A lot of modding websites won't host adult-themed Morrowind mods, so Wolflore is probably the best place you can go to find that stuff. Now, one of the smaller websites you can go to find Morrowind mods is ModDB. It has a database of about 76 Morrowind mods. A lot of these are unique to ModDB. You won't necessarily find them elsewhere. And ModDB specializes in hosting large-scale projects, so you'll find the occasional total conversion mod, the occasional province mod, and stuff like that hosted on ModDB. And there's also a number of other smaller Morrowind modding websites, like TES Alliance, which primarily specializes in hosting Oblivion mods, but you will find 20 or so Morrowind mods on there. And then there's the Assimilation Lab. There's not really a whole lot of Morrowind mods on the Assimilation Lab, but you will find hosting for the unofficial Morrowind code patch here as well. And there's a bunch of other smaller websites for Morrowind mods, such as DeviantArt, which hosts about 50 Morrowind mods, and other places like that. Now, to get started with showing you how to install Morrowind mods, we're going to download a fairly simple mod from Morrowind Nexus and install it using the Nexus Mod Manager. This is extremely easy to use. You just hit the download button, and the mod will appear in your Nexus Mod Manager application, and you can activate it using the button on the left-hand side of the screen, and everything will just install into place. The problem is that a lot of Morrowind mods are actually incompatible with the Nexus Mod Manager. For a simple mod like this, all the files will install into the correct location, as we can see here, but for more complicated mods, it just won't work. So we're going to show you two different ways of installing mods, one way with the Nexus Mod Manager, and one way to do it manually. Now, to install a Morrowind mod manually, you first need to find your Morrowind directory. If you're using the Steam version of Morrowind, you'll find this under Program Files, Steam, Steam Apps, Common, and finally the Morrowind folder. And then you'll want to unpack your Morrowind mod that you just downloaded. And in my case, I'm using WinRAR for this. And then you'll just want to throw everything into the Data Files folder here. Overwriting anything that comes up. You want to be careful about doing this if you're installing a texture mod, but in this case it should be fine. And then you'll go to the Morrowind launcher and you'll activate the mod by double-clicking on it in the Data Files section. And that's really all you have to do. Now, in order to demonstrate some of the problems that can arise when you use the Nexus Mod Manager to install Morrowind mods, I'm going to real quick download one of my own mods that I've created, and try and install it using the Nexus Mod Manager. I know for a fact that this mod is incompatible with the manager, and the reason why is because I included two .esp files in the mod download. I included a framerate friendly version and a regular version that players could choose between, but if you install both, they cause problems. Now, as we can see, when we activate the mod using the Nexus Mod Manager, and we go to the launcher and check the data files, it activates both .esps. This will cause huge problems if you try to load the game like this. And a lot of mods are designed with multiple .esps included, and the Nexus Mod Manager will potentially cause problems when installing these types of mods. What I would recommend is to just install each Morrowind mod manually. It's already pretty easy to do. It's basically just dragging and dropping files into your data files directory, and then most importantly, reading the README file included in each mod download. These will give you clear-cut instructions on how to install each Morrowind mod, and they will also tell you which .esp you should be using if the mod includes multiple .esps. And then you can just manually activate each .esp in the Morrowind launcher if you so desire. Now, real quick, I'm just going to demonstrate another type of Morrowind mod that includes multiple .esps, because this is very common in the modding community. What these mod authors do is that they include multiple versions of their mod in each mod download, and often these versions will support other popular mods in the community, and these can be denoted by the abbreviations in the mod names. Like the abbreviation COM stands for Children of Morrowind. The more mods you download, you'll become more familiar with these abbreviations, and here's a list of the most common ones that you'll find when downloading Morrowind mods. And when you see one of these abbreviations, that means that that mod requires another mod in order to work properly, and you should only activate it if you have that mod installed. Moving on to another part of our tutorial series, I'm going to show you how to install Morrowind mods that include BSA archives. And this is another type of Morrowind mod that just doesn't install very well with the Nexus Mod Manager. What the problem is that a BSA archive basically includes all the resources that the mod uses, like models and textures, and the Nexus Mod Manager doesn't register the BSA archive with the Morrowind.ini file, as you can see here. So the problem is if you try and activate this mod using the Nexus Mod Manager and then playing the game, is that you'll just get a bunch of error messages upon loading the game. Now, there's a couple of different ways you can use to install Morrowind mods that have BSA archives, and the first way I'm going to show you is by using the BSA Registration Utility program by Kingpix. And this is pretty easy to install. You just throw it into the Morrowind directory, and then activate the BSA Registration Utility application. And it'll automatically detect all the BSA archives in your data files directory. And then you can add some others that are maybe included in different folders, and then you can register all the BSAs with the Morrowind.ini right away. And this is a really simple and easy way to install mods that have the BSA archives included. Now there is another way to install this type of mod, and that's to do it manually, and this again involves dragging and dropping the files into the data files directory, and then going to the Morrowind.ini file and scrolling down to the bottom until you get to the archives section. It'll be right next to the weather settings. You'll then want to make a new line and then type in the name of the archive. In our case it's going to be archive 3, but in your case it might be archive 2. And then you want to type the exact name of the archive, and this is the tricky part. You can't make any typos here, otherwise it won't work. And then you'll just save the .ini and it should work upon loading up the game. Now another type of mod that requires some special consideration when you install it is a mod that modifies the vanilla leveled list of Morrowind. And these mods will usually mention whether or not they do this in the mod description. It's always important to read the mod description for information like that. And to just briefly explain, a leveled list is sort of like a random item or random creature generator. And the problem here is that two mods that modify the exact same leveled list will conflict. So if you're installing two mods that do that, only the content added by one will actually show up in your game. And as an example, I'm installing two mods, the Hostiles and Morrowind Comes Alive. These two mods modify the same leveled list, and I'm going to show you how you can get the content in both mods to work perfectly alongside each other. Now first things first, we're going to install these mods just as we have with all the other mods. We're going to throw them into the data files directory and activate them in the Morrowind launcher. And now there's a couple of different ways that we can fix the leveled list issue, and the first way I'm going to show you is with a utility called Wrye Mash. This is a really excellent utility. It has a lot of functionality, and one of the functionalities it offers is to merge leveled lists from multiple mods into a single leveled list file. And first we're going to install it. It's a standard executable. We're going to install it into a new directory. Once we have Wrye Mash installed, we're going to open it up, and first thing, we're going to hit that little floppy disk icon in the lower left-hand corner and find our Morrowind installation. In our case, we're using the Steam version of Morrowind, so it's going to be located under the C drive, Program Files, Steam folder, Steam Apps, Common, and finally the Morrowind directory. And I do apologize for how long this takes me. It takes me a little while to find the right folder. And once we do, we're going to hit the OK button. And once that's done, we're going to have to reload Wrye Mash by opening it up again before the changes in the Morrowind installation will take effect. Now before we can fix our leveled list issue, we first need to find our Wrye Mash installation directory and go to the Mopi folder and then the Extras folder, and scroll down until we find the mashlist.esp and copy it over into our data files directory in our Morrowind installation. Then we're going to open up Wrye Mash again, and we're going to quickly find our mashlist.esp in the list here, and then we're going to checkmark it. Now first we're going to make sure all the mods we want are activated, and then we're going to right-click on mashlist.esp, go down to Import, and then down to Leveled Lists. And this will automatically merge all the leveled lists from the mods we've activated into one file, so that they won't conflict anymore. And you'll need to do this every time you install a new mod that modifies Morrowind's vanilla leveled list in order to make sure you're getting all of the new modded content. And as you can see here, when we go to the Morrowind launcher, that the mashlist.esp is active. It basically acts like a normal mod that just happens to contain all the leveled lists from our other mods in it. Now the other way we can fix the leveled list problem is by using a simple program called TES3CMD, and we can install this by simply throwing it into the data files directory of our Morrowind installation. I already have it installed, so I'm just going to overwrite it here. And TES3CMD is a command line program. A lot of people don't like using command line programs because they think it's confusing, but it's actually very simple to use. Now real quick, I'm going to show you how to use a command line program. Just go to the data files folder in your Morrowind installation, hold down Shift, right click and go to open a command window. Then type in the command TES3CMD Multi-Patch --merge -lists, and then hit enter, and the program will automatically scan your Morrowind installation for active plugins, and then combine all the leveled lists it finds into a single new mod called the multipatch.esp. And that'll just automatically be activated in your save game. Now it should be noted that this is incompatible with the Wrye Mash mashlist.esp. Don't have them active at the same time. You can only use one of these. Now real quick, I want to show you another feature of the multi-patch command, and we're just going to type in TES3CMD Multi-Patch, and what this will do is that this will merge all the leveled lists in your plugins, but not only that, this will also fix a number of minor simple conflicts between your plugins as well, and it does a number of other things, and I generally recommend using the multi-patch command every time you add a new mod to your save game. Now, something you'll want to do if you have the Steam version of Morrowind is go down to your Morrowind installation in your Steam library and go to Properties and then disable the Steam overlay. And the reason for this is because Morrowind mods and Morrowind itself really just doesn't work very well with the Steam overlay, and it's better off disabled. Now, the next thing we're going to cover is the Morrowind code patch, and this isn't really related to modding so much, but it's something you should install anyway because it will vastly improve your gameplay experience. The Morrowind code patch includes a number of bug fixes for vanilla Morrowind, and some advanced modding support features as well. And to install it, we're just going to throw everything into the Morrowind directory, overwriting anything that pops up. Then we're going to double-click the Morrowind Code Patch Launcher to start applying patches. And there are a wide variety of patches to choose from, as you can see here, from gameplay elements like arrow enchanting or permanent auto disposition, to advanced modding support features like improved animation support or increased map expansion size that lets you see distant landmasses, to bug fixes for vanilla Morrowind, and you just hit the apply patches when you've chosen everything you want to install, and then exit out, and everything should be applied automatically. The next thing we're going to cover is the 4GB patch, and to just explain this a little bit, Morrowind was originally designed to only use a maximum of 2GB of computer memory, but that doesn't really work very well on modern day systems, so we're going to use the 4GB patch to improve performance. And to do this, we're just going to throw it into the Morrowind installation directory, then activate it and find our Morrowind application. Note, not the Morrowind launcher application, the Morrowind application. Then we're going to hit OK, and it'll be applied automatically, and this will just really help with performance when playing Morrowind. Now, the next utility we're going to cover is sort of an important one. It's the Morrowind Graphics Extender. Most of you are probably going to install this at some point in time because it does vastly improve the graphics of Morrowind. And to install it, we're just going to throw everything into the Morrowind installation directory, overwriting anything that pops up, and then we're going to activate the MGE application. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to the Distant Land tab and hit that large Distant Land Generator Wizard button. And this will allow us to choose any plugins that we want to generate distant land for. I just usually hit the current load order button, and this will start the process for generating distant land files. Now, distant land generation takes place over 3 different steps, the first of which is the land texture generation, where you can choose the world texture resolution, and obviously the higher resolution you go with, the more performance impact it's going to have. And the second step is generating the land meshes, where you can choose the world mesh detail, and there's a number of options for that. And then the third step is generating distant statics, and there's a lot of options here, such as grass density, mesh detail, whether or not to include activators and miscellaneous objects in distant land generation, as well as the minimal size of static objects to include in distant land generation. The smaller number you go with, the more statics will be generated in the distant land. And there's also an option to skip min-map levels if you so desire in order to improve performance. Now, it should be noted that you can change these settings at any time if you need to by rerunning distant land generation. And once you've generated the distant land files, you can change a number of other different settings, such as the draw distance. You can load the entire island of Ardenfell if you want to, and be able to see Red Mountain from sea to Neen. You can also change settings for water reflections, and include dynamic ripples, including the height of waves, so you can have giant waves hitting the coast if you so desire. There's also dynamic solar shadows, per pixel lighting, and also weather settings that you can mess with. Now, real quick, I'm going to activate a new mod I've installed in my Morrowind launcher, and then I'm going to regenerate the distant land files. And you should get in the habit of doing this. Every time you install a new Morrowind mod, you should regenerate the distant land files by selecting the current load order, and then using the saved settings you've already selected for land generation, or changing the settings if you so desire. And this will just add the mod to the distant landscape. Now, the next utility we're going to cover is called MLOX, and what this utility does is that it helps you maintain your Morrowind load order. To install it, we're just going to throw the entire MLOX folder into the Morrowind installation directory, and then activate the MLOX application. Now, it's very important to maintain your Morrowind load order if you're going to install a lot of Morrowind mods. If you don't, you run the risk of running into several errors and various bugs. Even if you don't install a lot of mods, you should probably run MLOX anyway. If you have the Morrowind Steam version, for example, occasionally the Morrowind Steam version gets the load order incorrectly with putting Blood Moon at the top instead of Morrowind, and that can cause problems. Now when you open up MLOX, you'll see two different lists, the current active plugins list and the proposed order of those plugins, and to fix that order, all you have to do is hit the Update Load Order button, and MLOX will automatically fix the load order. And as you can see here, the order has been fixed as proposed. Now it should be mentioned that MLOX has a number of other really cool features as well. For example, it'll tell you if any of the Morrowind mods you have installed are out of date and if a new version is available, and as you can see here, it provides you with a download link highlighted in blue. It'll also tell you whether or not any of the mods you have installed conflict with each other, and as you can see here, we do in fact have two mods that conflict with each other, and it'll give you various other recommendations as well. It's a very useful program. Now for the next part of our tutorial series, we're going to cover how to fix a Morrowind save game. And to do this, we're going to use Wrye Mash. So after you launch Wrye Mash, go to the Saves tab at the top and right-click on your save game and select Repair All. The program will then go through your save and find any particular issues and try and fix them. And it'll report back if it finds any problems. In this case, our save didn't have any problems and it reports back that it was perfectly alright. Now we can also use Wrye Mash to remove mods from a save game, and we can do this by going to the Mods tab at the top and deselecting the mods we want to remove, and then going back to the Saves tab, selecting our save game, and then over here in the lower right hand corner selecting the File tab and right-clicking on it, and hitting Sync to Load List, and then hitting Save. This will remove those mods from our save game. Now the last major thing we're going to be covering in this tutorial series is how to install the Morrowind graphics and sounds overhaul on the Steam version of Morrowind. And really this is the same as installing it on the regular version of Morrowind. I'm just going to be specifying the Steam version of Morrowind because I know a lot of you are using it. And for those of you who don't know, the Morrowind graphics and sounds overhaul is sort of like the #1 graphics compilation for Morrowind. And to install it, we're just going to unpack everything in our download into the Morrowind installation directory. And this might take a while. This download is like 2 to 3 gigabytes in size. And once we've got everything unpacked, we're going to activate the MO Installer application, and this is going to start the installation process, and I'm not going to go into detail about this. KingPix has already made a tutorial video on how to install MGSO, and I'm just going to leave an annotation here that links to that. But I am going to point out that a lot of the things we covered before, like the 4GB patch and the Morrowind code patch, are included in MGSO, so you don't need to install those separately. I will just point out a few problems that can occur with the options menu in MGSO. For example, the animated graphs for Voddenfell and Solstein can cause a lot of mod conflicts if you leave that enabled. So if you're planning to install a lot of Morrowind mods with your save game, you should disable animated graphs for Voddenfell and Solstein. Likewise, you should disable Fireplace's add-on and animated containers, because those can also cause a lot of mod conflicts. Now, there are a few major bugs with MGSO, but luckily people have made a lot of great patches over the years that fix these issues, and I've got download links to them down in the description below. And to install them, we're just going to throw them into the Morrowind installation directory and overwrite all the files that get reported. And of course, you need to do this after you've installed MGSO. And this fixes a lot of basic issues like the missing table mesh, which I'm pretty sure everyone is familiar with. And we've also got the Spirit Hawk patch that fixes the missing Daedric armor textures as well. And we're just going to throw that into the data files folder and overwrite everything. And these two patches should fix the majority of the issues you have with MGSO. And it should be noted that you can install whatever mods you want on top of the Morrowind graphics and sounds overhaul. It is designed to be fully compatible with the majority of mods out there. Now the very last thing we're going to cover is how to clean Morrowind mods, because sometimes the mod you just downloaded is actually dirty and could corrupt your save game. So to give an example, I'm going to copy and paste a dirty mod into my data files folder, and then I'm going to use TES3CMD by holding down the shift button and right clicking to open a command window at the data files folder, and I'm going to type in the command TES3CMD clean followed by the mod name in quotation marks including .esp, and then I'm going to hit enter. TES3CMD will then go through and automatically detect any dirt in the mod file and delete it, saving the file as a new mod. And the most common type of dirty mod is a mod that has the 72 evil GMSTs in it. And to explain that a bit, GMSTs are game settings, and they're generally pretty bad. You don't want a mod that modifies that because it will corrupt your save game. Now, another way we can clean Morrowind mods is by using Morrowind's Enchanted Editor, and this is really more of a dev tool for modders, but it's pretty user-friendly and just about anyone can use it. So we're just going to scroll down here until we find a dirty mod, and then we're going to open it up in Morrowind's Enchanted Editor. And when we do, we're going to see that it has 72 evil GMSTs, so we're just going to checkmark those, and then hit delete, and then save the mod, and that's all we have to do. Now keep in mind that some mods do legitimately change game settings, and those shouldn't be cleaned, but those mods will usually tell you whether or not they do that in the mod descriptions. And anyway, that pretty much wraps up our first episode of Morrowind Modding Tutorials. Hopefully you found it somewhat useful. If you didn't, you'll find plenty of written tutorials and download links in the video description below, which will hopefully give you a little bit of extra assistance if you need it. Now, next time we'll probably cover how to install some of the more popular mods for Morrowind, like Morrowind Rebirth or Tamaray Built, and eventually we'll also get around to showing you how to install Morrowind Total Conversion mods as well. But if you need any tech support in the meantime with installing mods, you can always go to the official Bethesda forums for help, or go to the Nexus Mods forums, and there's a lot of people here that'll be happy to help you out and lend a hand with any problems you might have with installing Morrowind mods. The people in the Morrowind modding community are generally very friendly. Now anyway, that wraps everything up, so hopefully you guys found this useful, and I'll see you all next time.